Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for tuning into today's Sheffield Museum's live talk. This is our way of bringing our museums, collections and exhibitions to you virtually. And if you're enjoying these free talks, you can donate online at museums-sheffield.org.uk/donate. And thank you for all the donations that we've been receiving. We've also reopened now, so if you haven't visited us yet, you can see more of our collections and objects on display in our museums if you can visit us now. So today we're talking about Sheffield's craft heritage, looking at some iconic Sheffield-made objects from the city's collection. And I'm very excited to be joined by Mary Lewis from the Heritage Crafts Association. So welcome, Mary.
Hi.
And as you may know, we are live right now. So if you have any questions or comments, please do pop those in the Facebook comments box below, and we will have time at the end to answer a few questions. So we might as well make a start. And yeah, Mary, I'll pass over to you to begin.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks for organising this event, and thanks to Sheffield Museum for having me here today. I'm Mary Lewis, and I'm the Endangered Crafts Manager at the Heritage Crafts Association. So the third edition of the Red List of Endangered Crafts 2021 is hot off the press. It's received a huge amount of publicity. We've been in the Telegraph, the Guardian, we've been on Radio 4. We even made it onto Have I Got a Bit More News for You, which is incredibly exciting for us. Some of you might be already familiar with the Red List. For those of you who aren't, I'll give a quick overview, and I'll spend a bit of time looking at some of the crafts featured this time around and linking them to some of the objects in the Sheffield Museum's collection. So the Red List of Endangered Crafts started life in 2015 when we were awarded funding from the Radcliffe Trust to survey crafts most at risk of dying out. The first list was published in 2017 and the second in 2019. Our huge thanks goes to the Pilgrim Trust for the funding that's allowed us to continue this important work into the future. It's this continuity that really adds value to this work and allows us to not only see the current situation, but the trends and healths of all these widely varied craft occupations. It's been a genuine pleasure to work on this research and gain so much insight into so many fascinating crafts. It's a big task, but it hasn't been boring. The choice of basing the research on a red list methodology such as that used by the Red List of Endangered Species was a very calculated one, in that it is inescapably negative, focusing on what is struggling rather than what is thriving. However, the thing I've come to realise while working on this project is that you need to know the baseline in order to know what the opportunities are. Otherwise, they'll be lost before we've had a chance to realise them. The Red List of Endangered Crafts is increasingly being recognised by the craft sector and by external bodies as a baseline of evidence on which to build opportunities and to ensure that this rich, diverse seed bank of skills that exists in the studios, sheds, workshops and woodlands of the UK are celebrated and valued. I spoke to a gilder during the course of the research who said he has made it his life's mission to get gilding off the Red List. This is exactly what it's designed to do. While some obstacles facing crafts might require funding or policy change, change can also come from the grassroots and be driven by the makers and creatives in their workshops and studios. One of the things I've learned whilst working with makers is that they have the best ideas about how to preserve their crafts. It is for this reason that we make sure that we have makers represented at every level in our organisation and that we support makers to effect change through the Endangered Craft Fund and other projects. And I can happily report that the numbers of people gilding has increased, and gilding is no longer considered an endangered craft. But we mustn't sugarcoat this, not all crafts will survive. We have one remaining tinsmith that we know of, and this isn't nearly enough, and it only narrowly escaped being classified as extinct in the UK. We refer to crafts as extirpated or extinct in the UK. That means they're not necessarily extinct all over the world. If we really want craft skill to survive to the next generation, we need more people of all ages and diverse backgrounds to join the craft sector. New entrants and new ideas are crucial, and we want to ensure that the high level of skills and knowledge of current craftspeople are transferred in a way that continues to be useful and relevant. Heritage crafts are not just dusty old handcrafted relics, and this is not about a misty-eyed vision of the past. This is about a wide variety of skilled people working today to create high quality, beautiful, functional items that add value to our lives. This picture here is of Jonathan. He's a putter at the Sheffield firm Ernest Wright Scissors. They won the President's Award for Endangered Crafts last year, and we're also delighted that he's now joined us as a trustee. Where these crafts can't or won't survive, we can recognise and honour their disappearance by celebrating the people whose lives have been shaped by these occupations. And I'll come back to some of the master putters at Ernest Wright Scissors later. So here's some of the stats on the red list. So 244 crafts now feature in the research. This is up from 169 in 2017 and 213 in 2019. So these are things that we weren't featured before, things we found out about since we first started doing the red list. We're glad to report there are no new extinct crafts or extirpated crafts. We've got 56 critically endangered crafts, including 20 new entries and 2 reclassifications. These are crafts that are at serious risk of becoming extinct in this generation. Most will have fewer than 10 practitioners, professional practitioners. In this category, we have crafts such as sporran making, point shoe making, mouth-blown sheet glass making, and scissor making, which I'll come back to. We have 74 endangered crafts, including 7 new entries. These will have more remaining practitioners, but may be facing pressures such as a shrinking market share or competition from overseas markets. In this category, we've got things like kilt making, hat making, and spectacle making. We have 110 viable crafts, up from 102. These have been assessed as having enough remaining practitioners to pass their skills on to the next generation. However, we never consider them to be risk-free, as many crafts will be facing challenges. And that's the full list. You can see it's quite a big list. If you want to see the full list, you can on our website, and there's more information on each of those crafts and the practitioners that we know about. So each time we update the red list, we learn more and we fill in more gaps. We see this as a strength, as it has the capacity to grow, develop and improve each time. The research is sector-led. We ask the people who know the best, the craftspeople and their representative association guilds, for real-world data and the issues that are facing their crafts. The list also shows real-world changes. Examples of this are things like engine turning and fender making, where the numbers of practitioners continue to drop. Others have seen increases, such as gilding and pole lathe bowl turning. We're seeing a large increase in the critically endangered crafts. This isn't necessarily because we're seeing crafts becoming more endangered, but more that we're increasingly finding subsections of crafts that are at risk. For example, glass engraving is thriving, but copper wheel engraving on glass as a subset of that category has been listed as critically endangered. We're yet to see the full effect of COVID on craft, but we do know the effects have been mixed, with some craftspeople reporting they've never been busier, and others who have struggled to survive and have received little support. In particular, we've had reports of older craftspeople approaching retirement, giving up early, which will have a negative impact on the transfer of skills. We've also seen the loss of traditional craft businesses such as Olney Headwear in Luton, hence the hat picture. Hat making, as practiced by these traditional businesses, is now on the list as an endangered craft, as these trades come under additional pressure. And there will be trades in Sheffield that are probably facing similar pressures now. So let's have a little bit of a closer look at Sheffield specifically. So this impressive pair of scissors were made in the mid-1800s by the Sheffield manufacturer Edwin Hunter. They were exhibited at the 1851 Great Exhibition at Crystal Palace alongside 230 other pairs of every size and pattern. I can't imagine what 230 different scissors do, but it's incredible to think about. They're intricately hand-filed with detailed ornamentation, and this pair is very large with a decorative scroll design etched on the inside of the blades and ornate beading on the shanks. When the Sheffield City Museum opened in 1875, Edwin Hunter's family donated his exhibition scissors to the collection. So there are 2 remaining scissor factories in the UK, both in Sheffield, William Whiteley and Sons and Ernest Wright Scissors. Between these 2 factories and 1 independent maker, we think there are between 6 and 10 skilled scissor makers left in the UK. So not many. You saw the picture of Jonathan earlier with his scissors. He's a putter or putter-togetherer with Ernest Wright Scissors, who've been making scissors in Sheffield since 1902. They are the craftspeople who will actually assemble the scissors, which is a highly skilled part of the scissor making process, where the 2 blades are put together and adjusted so they're perfect. Ernest Wright is a historic company and reflects everything Sheffield's become famous for, highly skilled craftsmen making supreme quality products. So we talked about a little bit about the older generation. This is Master Putter Cliff, Ernest Wright. So following a tragedy in 2018, the company went into receivership and the craft of scissor making was on the verge of disappearing from Sheffield. Paul Jacobs and Jan Bart Fanoy, 2 Kickstarter backers, took action and bought the company with the single objective to rescue a great brand and the heritage. So they rehired the remaining putters, Cliff and Eric, the master putters, and took on several putters in training, and Jonathan was one of those. So here we have There's actually 5 of them now. There's 4 of them pictured there. The factory is back in action, and there are 12 scissor patterns currently in production, including the Turton kitchen scissors that have been in production since 1900s and antique stalk embroidery scissors. There are now 5 trainees at the factory, and they're going from strength to strength. It's a great story of how a business can be turned around. For us, this embodies the success of the Red List and what it's for. Ultimately, it's not the Heritage Crafts Association that will save craft skills. It's those people who make a positive choice to learn, make and teach an endangered craft who will do that. Our society would be a poorer place without these people, those people who decide they will be a concertina maker, a flint knapper or a putter togetherer. And our culture would be poorer without these skills. So just in case you thought it was all about boys, here is artisan cutler and corsetier Grace Horn. She's the only professional scissor maker that we know of outside of the 2 main factories, also based in Sheffield. She received support from the Endangered Craft Fund in 2019 to test a new drop forging process in the UK, which will enable more people to learn the craft of scissor making. That's an ongoing project and it's been quite successful so far. So look at her scissors. I put these in to show that these skills do still exist. We can still make scissors in the UK that rival those of the first image by Edwin Hunter, or at least Grace can. These Lotus scissors are incredible. And those miniature scissors that Grace has made are made using a microscope, and they're small enough to fit inside the bows, inside the handles of the original Lotus pair. So they're about like 6 mil long or something like that, and they're fully functional. They're incredible. So knife making, Sheffield's probably best known for its cutlery. So the correct definition of cutler, as we understand it, is someone who makes knives or blades, not necessarily tableware. Although of course we know that Sheffield's also famous for its tableware. Again, these are pieces from the Sheffield Museum collection. The first is a silver and mother of pearl knife with an inlaid silver cartouche with the owner's initials engraved in it. This would be a high-end piece. These were made using very expensive materials such as tortoiseshell and mother of pearl. They would have been a status symbol communicating a wealth and a refined sense of taste to those around you. But the second there is a souvenir pocket knife made with Sheffield folding blades, and that was made of much more inexpensive plastic and decorated with transfer pictures of the King and Queen. So they were also spanning a range from day-to-day items to the high-end luxury items. Folding knives are still made in Sheffield. You may have known of Stan Shaw, one of the last of the Little Mesters, who was at Kelshaw Island Museum. He sadly died earlier this year at the age of 94, but was still making knives until very recently. There are now only 3 companies making folding knives in Sheffield and some independent makers, although it is probably seeing a modest increase as people are starting to appreciate handmade tools and items more. So this is Michael May. He's one of our top new generation of knife makers, with his apprentice there, James Rhodes. They received funding from the Endangered Craft Fund in 2019 to equip James with machinery so he could make knives independently. We know it can be really tough for craftspeople to make enough profit to support both themselves and a trainee. So funding like this can be really helpful in bringing new people into the industry. It just brings down those barriers a little bit and enables more people to start making. And this is James's apprentice piece that he made while working with Michael, and you can see that it's absolutely incredible. We see a great future for him in folding knife making. And it's still considered endangered, but like I said, we're probably seeing a modest increase in the numbers of makers and skills in knife making. We all know Sheffield for steel, but like every other town and city, there would have been a wide range of other crafts practice too. Clogs would have been ubiquitous in Sheffield. These were worn at Daniel Doncaster and Sons Steelworks in around 1940 by Richard Doncaster. Clogs were useful in the metalworking industry because the thick soles protected feet from splashes of hot metal on the floor. But who wants clogs today? So some people do want them, particularly folk dancers and those who need specialist footwear. This is a picture of Jojo Wood. She trained in clog making, but she now mostly uses the stock knife or clog knife for making spoons, which is what she's known for. But this is a nice picture that shows how clogs would have been made using these huge blades clamped to a bench. These clogs are made by a successful young maker, Simon Brock, also based in Sheffield. He won a bursary from the Heritage Crafts Association to learn hand-carved clog making from Jeremy Atkinson, who is one of the last hand-carved clog makers. He makes clogs using both machine and hand techniques, and this image shows his work at London Fashion Week in collaboration with designer Cecile Tulkens, so showing clogs there in a different light. He mostly makes clogs for folk dancers and enthusiasts. You can see they're largely unchanged in form or in the methods used to make them. Quite a few are now made using bandsaw to make the soles, but some are still made completely by hand. So the red list can look like it's all bad news. It isn't. We know that crafts can recover. So this shows a bowl being made on a foot-operated pole lathe. There would have been a time when all of our bowls would have been locally made out of local wood, but they've obviously been superseded by mass-produced ceramics and other materials. Incidentally, this picture is of Robin Wood, who is a maker based in Sheffield as well. As a result, pole lathe bowl turning was an extinct craft from the 1950s to the 1990s, when it was revived by Robin Wood, who's one of our HCA trustees. It's now thriving, with many professional amateur makers and many learners. So since the red list was created, pole lathe bowls have moved from critically endangered to now being considered completely viable. They're no longer endangered. So 20 years ago, perhaps we wouldn't have imagined that anyone would want to buy an artisan-made wooden bowl when they can buy a much cheaper one in the supermarket. But the more people that learn about craft and who engage in crafts, the more that we will appreciate the beauty and inherent sustainability of products like these humble wooden bowls. Incidentally, Robin also, as well as making bowls, he runs a tool making factory in Sheffield where he makes axes and spoon carving knives. So by surveying what we're at risk of losing, we're also in each case discovering potential to rediscover these skills in ways that can benefit the future. I mentioned at the beginning that all this awareness raising puts us in a position to make interventions where we can and where it's appropriate to do so. Since 2019, and thanks to generous donations from our funders and supporters, we've rewarded over £40,000 to 27 individual makers to support endangered craft skills. I must especially thank the Dulverton Trust, the Swire Trust and the Garfield Weston Trust for this and other funding that allows us to continue our work. We also now have the President's Award for Endangered Crafts, sponsored by the Prince of Wales, that awards £3,000 each year to one truly exceptional maker. That was the award that was won by Ernest Wright Scissors last year. So to sum up, on each revision of the red list, our understanding improves and we get a deeper understanding of the skills that underpin our craft heritage. So as the numbers of critically endangered crafts go up, this doesn't necessarily mean their situation has worsened, but that we do know more about them. As we've seen, some crafts are doing really well and some are facing severe pressures. COVID has put pressure on craftspeople, but it's also accelerated broader social change and more people taking up crafts and more people are buying crafts. But the craft revival is being held back by structural issues such as lack of training routes and government financial support for training. So a bit of a call to action. Join the HCA and lend your voice to a growing movement. We welcome all members, makers and non-makers and those with an interest in heritage crafts. Please, if you can, if you're able to, make a donation to the Endangered Crafts Fund to support more people like the makers you've seen in this presentation today. And most importantly, support makers through buying and commissioning their work. So that's me done for today. If you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer anything that you're interested in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that talk, that really brief overcap of, and it is amazing to see what talented people, we have in Sheffield and what people are making, all these skills that are still going, even on a small scale. It's really interesting. Thank you. We do have time for a few quick questions. So if you do have any, please put those in the comments box now. But just to start things off, why is it important to protect these crafts, and why does it matter if we lose one of them?
Well, it's a common question we're asked, is why would it matter if this one craft becomes extinct in the UK? And perhaps for one skill, maybe it wouldn't be missed, but that isn't really the point from our point of view. We think that all these hand skills contribute to our craft heritage and legacy. So each time we lose one, we lose a little bit more of that intangible cultural heritage. So our tangible heritage being the things that are in the museums, like the objects and collections and all that important work that you do. But our intangible heritage is those things that are enacted through a human. You can't put them in a case, you can't put a plaque on them. They include things like our languages, our folk songs and dances, our festivals, and most importantly, obviously, our traditional craftsmanship. Important to us.
Absolutely. And how do you decide which crafts go on the endangered list?
Well, we have a methodology we work to, so it's a combination of the most important factor is the numbers of makers remaining, so the numbers of professional makers, but we also look at numbers of amateur makers and hobby makers, because we have some crafts like something like lace making, for example, where there are no professional remaining makers, so that is a craft that's being completely kept alive by amateur and hobby makers. But that doesn't mean they're not skilled. They're often working at an incredibly high level and are very skilled. So we try to look at where the skills are and how at risk they are of being lost.
Wonderful. And a last question. Do you think that people are starting to appreciate handmade crafts more nowadays?
I think we have seen an increase, particularly during lockdown, of people engaging in crafts. And I think if people engage and understand crafts more, then they will understand crafts broadly much better. So I think if you've got if you understand how a garment is put together, you're going to appreciate what a garment worker in a factory does to make our clothes, or if you understand a little bit more about woodwork, then you'll understand a bit more how our furniture is produced. And I think you do have a deeper understanding and appreciation for the skills that go into those things. Yeah, I think we are seeing an increase, and I think as well the Crafts Council have produced reports recently that shows that the market for craft is increasing across the board.
Fantastic. Great. Well, that's good news. So fantastic. Thank you so much for that talk. Really interesting. And thank you everybody for watching. And please do keep an eye out for our other talks and virtual tours and things coming up as part of our Sheffield Museum's live programme. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Mary, for the lovely talk.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.